Here.
Deputy Mayor Lowry?
Here.
Councilmember Feller?
Here.
Councilmember Kern?
Oh, here.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Here.
Great. Please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Please join me in bowing our heads. Father, we come before you to say thank you. Thank you for the privilege, the blessing, the honor it is to reside here in the city of Oceanside. We come together tonight as a diverse community, a community of different backgrounds, different beliefs, different presents, and different futures, yet one common goal, and that is the betterment of this city. We come together tonight to seek your guidance, wisdom, and discernment during the deliberations that transpire this evening, and in doing so, we lift up Mayor Weiss, Deputy Mayor Lowry, Councilmember Sanchez, Councilmember Kern, and Councilmember Feller. Will you grant them peace and wisdom as they lead our city into a bright and prosperous future? We say all these things in your precious name. Amen. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag over in the corner. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may all be seated. Thank you.
So at this point, we will
That's on the
take
consent
a
calendar.
request by Councilmember Kern and Feller to recognize the homeless veterans of San Diego.
Can I have all my colleagues come to the center?
Sure.
Thank you. Every year for the last 12 years, I've always recognized veterans at this time of year just before Veterans Day. And this time, I work with the Veterans Association of North County in order to do this. And this year, I am nominating for our Veteran of the Year, Organization of the Year is Homeless Veterans of San Diego. So can I have Susan Dallas, who's the Senior Vice President of Homeless Veterans of San Diego, and Alex Lucy, who is their Chief Marketing Officer. You get to stand in the center. You guys, we'll fill in around you. I'm going to read this. Go ahead. You can stand right here. Stand right there. Okay, the 2018 Nonprofit Veteran Organization of the Year. Now, on Friday, I'm going to go down with them, and we're going to be at the county Veteran of the Year presentations, and they've been nominated, so they may very well be the County Veteran Association of the Year. I did this a few years ago, and when I nominated the Veterans Association, or the YMCA, Armed Forces YMCA as the association year, we won. So hopefully this year we'll do it again. So I'm going to read this. And so whereas Homeless Veterans of San Diego was named the 2018 Nonprofit Veteran Organization Year by Oceanside City Council Member Jerry Kern and Veterans Association of North County in recognition of their continuing support and services for veterans and active duty service members, militaries, and family. I know homelessness has been a lot in the news lately, and these are people actually doing something about it for our veterans. Whereas Homeless Veterans of San Diego, established in 2017, has helped to move homeless veterans off the streets and provide bridge housing for 41 veterans and permanent housing for 19 others. So they're actually making a difference. Whereas Homeless Veterans of San Diego over the past year has provided over 150 supportive services to homeless veterans and military community that include rental assistance, emergency shelter, jobs, schools, and mental health assistance. Whereas the Homeless Veterans of San Diego has built the trust and the friendship of the homeless veterans community because of their hands-on approach that ensures communication, encouragement, and individual attention, not just while there are clients, but clients are in the program, but for life. Now, therefore, the Oceanside City Council and the Veterans Association of North County wish to express their deepest appreciation to homeless veterans of San Diego for their ongoing support and dedication to our military community and to congratulate them as the 2018 Homeless Veteran Nonprofit of the Year organization. So before we do the photo op, Susan, I'm going to hand the mic to you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the recognition. I'd like to thank the mayor, as well as the Oceanside City Council, as well as you, Jerry. Thank you very much for the recognition. We're accepting this award on behalf of, I'm going to choke up, on behalf of the veterans that are still on the street. We're trying to, to help every single day. And we're all aware, we see these people walking, we're very aware of the problem. And what we try to do is give them hope and move them from hopeless to a hopeful organization, move them from the streets into a home. So in addition to thanking the vets for letting us help them, I wanted to also thank, we're a completely volunteer organization. I'd like to thank all of the volunteers that we have that do such a great job for us every day. And to recognize that we're not the only organization that does this kind of work, that there are many other organizations in Oceanside and around the county that help with this very important work. Thank you so much for the award. We really appreciate the recognition.
And we're all going to squeeze together a little bit. Thank you. Thank you all. You're welcome.
Mr. Mullen?
I will give the closed session report at this time. The council met at 3:30 to discuss item 1 on the closed session agenda, conference with labor negotiator on the status of negotiations with the Oceanside Fire Management Association and the management employees of the city of Oceanside. There's no action to report under the Brown Act at this time. The council also met on item 2, conference with legal counsel involving the workers' compensation matter of William Wallace versus City of Oceanside. And the City of Del Mar versus the California Coastal Commission. There is no action under the Brown Act on either items 2A1 or 2A2 to report. Finally, the council did meet on item 3, conference with its real property negotiator over the property at 455 Country Club Lane. The negotiating parties are City of Oceanside and the Oceanside Senior Citizens Association, Inc. Under negotiations are price and terms for the use of the property. And while there is no action under the Brown Act to report at this time, the council has authorized me to make the following statement. The City Council has directed staff to work with the Oceanside Senior Citizens Association to continue its senior nutrition program without interruption, and staff will be meeting with representatives of the association to work out details.
Consent calendar items 5 through 15. Item number 15, Deputy Mayor Lowry is recusing himself from item number 15.
Move approval for balance. Or for all.
We have a motion and second. Please vote.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. Second, Deputy Mayor Lowry needs to vote.
Do we have to vote on that separately? Or just, he just excludes himself?
For all of them through 14. Motion approved 5-0, 4-0 for item number 15.
Jane, we're moving yours to the very end.
Thank you. I will be waiting right over here.
No, go.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Jane McPherson, I'm the Director of Financial Services. I'm here tonight to present the first quarter financial results for the general fund and as well as some other funds as per our report. I'm also here to submit the first quarter financial status report and recommend approval of the first quarter budget adjustments and transfers. As you can see, the revenues in the general fund, we're at 12% amended budget. This is normal. We receive our main revenues of property tax in the second and fourth quarter. So we're consistent with prior year. The property tax is at 2% of budget, which is consistent with the same time in the prior year. Sales tax is at 8%. Again, it's on track with budget. Transient occupancy tax, which is better known as TOT, is at 11% of budget, and There's no concerns there. Expenditures, we have budgeted $151,742, amended 156,093. We're at 25%, which is for one quarter of the year. There's no concerns that we're going to exceed budget at this time. Staff recommends City Council approve the first quarter budget adjustments and transfers. I'm available if you have any questions or comments.
No public on this item.
Move approval.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0. Should I go to item number 17?
Yes, please.
Yes, item number 17 is approval of construction documents and award of construction contract in the amount of $2,419,615 to Pavement Coating Corporation of Jurupa Valley for the fiscal year 2017-18 annual slurry seal project located on various streets throughout the city. Approval of budget appropriation in the amount of $1,186,020 from the Transnet Fund to the miscellaneous streets slurry seal account. Approval of budget appropriation in the amount of $1,033,983 from SB1 Fund to the slurry seal SB1 account. And authorization for the city manager to execute the agreement upon receipt of all supporting documents. Aruba? Okay. Oh, okay. I thought it sounded weird.
Mr. Bliss, you're on.
Very good. Honorable Mayor, council members, the City of Oceanside's roadway system is over 410 miles of streets throughout the city. We basically have three means that we use to maintain these streets. One is through the Public Works Department. The other is through two major capital improvement projects, the annual overlay project and the annual slurry seal project. The program before you today is a 17-18 slurry seal project. We have just completed the 17-18 overlay project, which is over $6 million worth of paving, and this is its counterpart. I think it's important to make a distinction between these two types of projects. Slurry seal is typically applied to a street that's in a fairly good condition. It's intended to be a surface treatment to seal the roadway, as opposed to an overlay project where we're changing the structural integrity of the roadway. So this particular project targets streets that are, again, in fairly good condition. The city has a pavement management program that identified every street in the city and provided a rating for those streets, and then provided a recommended treatment and cost. So we use the pavement management program to identify all the candidate streets for slurry seals and look for groupings of streets or neighborhoods that would be good candidates for this type of application. With that analysis, we came up with over 30 miles of streets in 8 different neighborhoods or groupings that we are intending to do with this project. We did our engineer's estimate at that time, came up to $2.2 million to perform this work. In September, we opened bids for the project after a month of advertising. We received 3 bids, and those range from $2.4 to $2.7 million. The low bid was, as stated, Pavement Coating Inc. at $2,419,615. That includes a alternate bid item as well, which was for some traffic control equipment. So it was a little bit off of our engineer's estimate. And also some unit prices in the AC were higher than anticipated. So there are some differences between our estimate and what was received. At this time, the staff is recommending that you allocate the funds from both Transnet and SB1 funding to this account, and approve the plans and specs, and authorize the city engineer to issue the contract for Pavement Coating Inc. Brief explanation of the project. At this time, I'm open and available for your questions.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you. This is a very important part of maintaining our roads, and I see that the project, this year's projects include downtown, Loma Alta, Fire Mountain, Henny Hills, Del Oro Hills, Ivy Ranch, River Meadows, Ardeo Village, and I think that's it.
Yes.
30 miles.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So do you also consider residents' requests to have certain streets looked at to see what they might need, whether a slurry or whether the overlay? Do you maintain such a list, or do you entertain? Do you accept requests for looking at streets for some of this work?
Councilmember Sanchez, Mayor, council members, that is correct. We do receive a lot of complaints about the streets.
Yeah.
We
That's
try-
a very direct way of saying it, yes.
They are logged and accounted for. However, with the pavement management system, we're trying to avoid favoritism or
Right, of course.
this type of thing. So we take more of a scientific analysis and using the pavement management.
But you want to
program.
make sure that they're maintained as.
Correct. If
and-
we see that there is a high concentration of these type of streets and there has been a combination of complaints, it makes that more of a priority than, say, another area with equal candidates, streets, you know.
Okay.
It's
I'm going to add one street here, or I want to add a community, Oceana.
Oceana.
So please consider that.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Move approval.
Councilmember Kern?
I'll second. Is there any public on this? Okay, thanks. My question is along the same lines. I have not lobbied to have my street done as long as I sat here, but next month I will no longer be here, so I'd like to lobby to have my street done at that time. And just to follow up on just to follow up on Councilmember Sanchez's line of thinking, how would the citizens contact either Gary or yourself to say, hey, come out and take a look at my street? How would they do that?
Councilmember Kern, we have a public access through public stuff is how it typically comes to us. It comes either via email or a phone call, and we catalog those and oftentimes go out there and look at them. Unfortunately, a lot of these streets are in very poor condition. I can make a whole nother presentation on the state of the streets and the pavement management and some other overall planning level for the roadway system. But we're basically underfunded, so it's hard to promise people that we're going to go to their neighborhood when there's so much need throughout the city. So it really becomes difficult when you start getting into reconstructions and overlay some of these more substantial treatments. Who's going to receive that treatment?
Well, basically, come January, I'll be giving you a call.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Feller?
So you have a list of areas that you go to. So in other words, we're doing this grouping this year. Next year, you have another grouping already in the plan.
Somewhat, yes.
Yeah,
It
somewhat.
really depends.
I mean, I know that's how it's happened for the last 18 years I've been here. So you do a great job getting to the streets that really that have a problem, and also handling the neighborhoods. You know, I didn't lobby for my street, but it got done somewhere along the line. And I'm grateful for it, and it needs it again. But it's, I realize 410 divided by 30 is probably, it's a lot of years before we're going to get to every street in town. So, you know, I think if you wanted to put out a list for the year coming up, as well as the one you're doing, that might help offset some of the questions that come up. So.
Yes, Councilmember Fuller, we're kind of poised because we weren't sure what our funding sources were going to be with the potential removal of SB1 funding.
Yeah.
So now that we know that this is secure, we will move forward, and with knowing the budgets that we have, we can project a lot easier than we could have in the past. So we delayed that a bit to see the outcome of the election.
And my only other question was, you talked about the equipment, and then you gave a total of 2419615. That's a lot of dough. But in the backup, under background, it says alternate bid item for portable changeable message boards of some sort to be used for traffic control. And it's to be retained by the city, owned by who?
Councilmember Fuller, that would be owned by the city. It would be housed in the Public Works Department.
Okay.
What we found is during the overlay project, we were incurring additional costs for the contractor to rent this equipment on major arterials to alert the public of the upcoming events. There was also a need by the police department and the public works department to have this type of equipment.
Okay.
So we procured it, and we'll be using them for events, for the police, and also public works and our capital improvement projects.
So nowhere in here told me how much those cost.
They were $75,000 for the total of, I think there were four of them that were
Four,
purchased.
okay.
So they're
All right, I'm sure we'll put them to good use.
Please vote.
Starting with the turkey trot.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Good. Do we have speakers on 20?
Yes, we do. We have 3 speakers on off-agenda items. First, Kathy Kinane, followed by Jimmy Knott, and last is Kenneth Quinn. Oh, great. Okay. And one more speaker.
Join us for the 13th Annual Pacific Marine Credit Union Oceanside Turkey Trot 10K Run, 5K Run Walk, Senior or Kids 1 Mile on Thanksgiving Day in downtown Oceanside. Event features live entertainment, finisher shirts, medals, and photos. New this year, Dick's Sporting Goods will be hosting our packet pickup. Proceeds benefit Move Your Feet Before You Eat Foundation and other Oceanside nonprofits. To register, visit OceansideTurkeyTrot.com.
Good evening, Mayor Weiss and City Council members. We're only 15 days away from Thanksgiving, the opportunity to fill the streets of Oceanside with runners and walkers. First announcement I'd like to make is that this year it'll be called the Front Wave Oceanside Turkey Trot, the Front Wave Credit Union. They had a branding change, and we're very excited about that. Second page. I have an announcement to make that a former OPD and current Move Your Feet Before You Eat board member, Ruben Sandoval, has been leading the way with our community outreach program this year. He is currently coaching at the age of 72 at Roosevelt Middle School and doing public appearances on behalf of the event and the foundation at KUSI, Channel 10. And if you read the UT next week, there's going to be an article about him by Bryce Miller. As I mentioned, we have a name change and a location change for our expo. Dick's Sporting Goods over on Vista Way will be hosting it on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then our Finish Line Expo will be in the same location as the amphitheater. There haven't been any changes on the course this year. We did move the Senior 1 Mile from Wednesday to Thanksgiving morning, and it'll be right between the kids' races. We will be offering bus shuttles again this year. They've been very successful, and we'll continue with that, although my goal is to fill the multi-level parking structure next to the train tracks this year, because no one ever parks there, in case anybody's listening. The event expects about 9,000 runners and walkers. We are going to have a great costume contest, and of course, we're going to have an excellent teams competition again. One of the things we're most proud of about this event is that we get fantastic media the day of the event, and as far as I know, I was recently notified that Caitlin Summer, the world champion surfer, will be coming to the event to start one of the races. It's going to take Mayor Weiss's spot. We're happy to have the sponsors return this year, and it's going to be a great event, and if you haven't registered, please register. The price is going to go up on the 19th. And you register at OCIDETurkeyTrot.com. And if you're registering a group, we have a discount that's available as well when you register, and the discount will be good until the 11th. So if you have any questions, thank you for having me.
Pete, I just wanted to, you have Front Wave Credit Union.
Yeah, how about that?
Right there, but is that the same as
It's
Pacific
the same
Marine?
company,
Well,
yes.
you have Pacific Marine all over your literature.
Well, it's because it doesn't change until the 12th.
Of?
This month.
Okay.
But I thought I'd give you guys a heads up, because when you're out there, right, when you're looking at all the signage, it's going to change on the 12th. It is the same event.
Their name changed on Veterans Day.
Yeah.
So over this whole weekend, they're going to be changing from Pacific Marine to Front Wave.
I got you. I was just pointing it out because I knew they were changing. I just didn't know when. So.
Yeah, so you'll be out there seeing me put stickers on everything. Any other questions? Questions? Nothing? We're looking forward to seeing everybody on Thanksgiving. Come move your feet before you ate with us this year. Thank you.
Mayor, council members, Jimmy Knott, 127 Sherry Lane. Also, the Senior Citizen of the Year for the City of Oceanside. And in that response, I want to take a moment and thank you for responding to the concerns and desires of our most neediest seniors. And I'll take and spread that news far and wide as I can. And I thank you for your time and effort in doing that this afternoon. On the second issue is I want to take and express to those people who were successful in yesterday's election and for those who weren't as successful. Because you went through fire. I've gone through the same thing. It's a public fire. It's very warming. And what happens is that you've experienced something that very few people get a chance to experience. And that is, you've listened to the public. You've heard their desires. Now it's a time for you to take and move ahead. And how you move ahead is by volunteering. And if you volunteer, what happens is that you grow and you help Oceanside grow. You also practice civility. You take and go for common ground. You help compromise. You help with common sense. You also look for inclusiveness. Even the opinions of those who are in the opposition, you look for areas where this can happen. And what happens is you also remember those who have less than the rest of us. So I encourage everyone, whether you take more successful or you're not as successful, to please move ahead. You've all earned a badge of merit. And thank you.
Kenneth Quinn.
How you doing, folks? Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm a urban outdoorsman in your neighborhood. I live in your alleyways and get tickets for sleeping on the beach. I've written, I've discussed with homeless people that want to work and that want a place to live and get off the street. I've been on the street for 30 years. In that time, I've driven a truck. I brought you your decadence one truckload at a time. I've entertained you with people that you probably listen to on the radio. But I was just given a letter by a gentleman. It says, on behalf of the homeless population within our community, we are seeking more long-term housing versus transient shelter. Our ability as a collective is going to be required by county officials and other supervised departments to begin to implement secure housing for those who are in need. Considering the requirements to obtain housing through HUD is an extremely drawn-out process, which I will agree with. I'm going through it myself right now. When considering housing for the homeless, the county should be advised that more housing vouchers and rapid housing funding should be made available on a local scale to transients who meet the criteria and proof of residency to be considered for eligibility to the local housing program. Respectfully, person didn't sign his name. I have an idea. If any one of you would like to meet me in an area where I stay at, 3 minutes, I can't pitch you my idea, but I do have an idea. And if you want to leave your security guards at home and just come out and talk to me. I'm not going to bite you or harm you. I just want to pitch you an idea and see what you think. But there are those of us out here that are living in your alleyways. 3 things I got to get over: funding, NIMBY disease, and property value. And talking to several business owners about my idea, they're worried about their property value. So I'm left with the impression that property value is more important than the quality of my life and me wanting to be able to get off the street and have a place to live and become a contributing member to your neighborhood. I like it here. It's a great place. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kenneth.
Thank you. Ken Layton.
I'm Ken Layton, 1221 St. Helene Court, and I'm speaking only for myself. 2 years ago, upon the death of Treasurer Mr. Ernst, I was chastised for suggesting that the city may, going forward, try to hire someone who is competent, who knows about portfolios, derivatives, and all those complex investment vehicles that the treasurer has to deal with. The person who gave me abuse for talking about it said we have to have more transparency in that position without indicating that there was anything that needed to be uncovered or that there was anything going wrong. And I just thought it was kind of silly. One council member at the time said, vote for the dead guy so we as a council can pick the most competent person. What do you know? 10 people applied, and you did pick the most competent person. It was someone with a PhD, 2 master's degrees, and who actually worked with nonprofits, tripling one of their portfolios from 10 million to 30 million. Of the 8 charter cities in San Diego County, there are 2 who elect their treasurer. One is Oceanside and one is Carlsbad. Carlsbad has a minimum competency list of requirements. Oceanside has these ideals written down, but in reality, all you have to be is 18 and a warm body and registered to vote in the city of Oceanside. And what do you know? We hit the jackpot. That's what we got yesterday, is a warm body who's over 18 and is registered to vote. And what that proves is if you put up, it's not Mr. Roy's fault. He figured out that if you simply put up the most signs, you win. And that's sure enough what happened. And now we have a city treasurer with no apparent clue about the complex world of finance. So what I suggest that you do is do the same thing that the city of Carlsbad did, which elects its own treasurer, is have a certain amount of hardcore, concrete specifications and qualifications that you need to have before you can become city treasurer. California counties and cities have gone bankrupt under the weight of pension liability, and this council doesn't seem to be too keen about making some of the unions within the city pay their fair share of their own pension fund. So because this is so important and because the portfolio matters so much, it grew from $150 million 8 years ago to $350 million now. This is not a popularity contest about who can put up the most signs. Please change the way we can vote for a city treasurer. Thank you very much.
No further speakers on this item. And item number 19 was passed because the individual for that item is not speaking on that item.
We'll go to item 22.
Yes,
And
item
I
number
will-
22 is request by Mayor Weiss and Deputy Mayor Lowry for consideration to clarify the city's zoning ordinance to restrict the maximum residential building heights in the Seaside neighborhood to 27 feet and direction to staff.
So the city's current zoning ordinance restricts the building heights in the South Oceanside neighborhood planning area to 2 stories or 27 feet, whichever is less. That is the current provision in the zoning ordinance. However, there is a separate article in the zoning ordinance that provides exceptions to height limits, and allows for structures to exceed the height limit provided they cover not more than 10% of the ground area covered by that structure. There have been several examples over the last several years of essentially third-story additions, even though they're not habitable, but they certainly do not conform to the spirit, which I believe is in the zoning ordinance regarding the 27 feet. And so my intent is to request the council to consider and direct staff to take the necessary actions to develop additional language to prohibit future building encroachments above the 27-foot limit.
I would second that.
We have 3 speakers on this item as well. So at this time, we have John Bickerton, followed by Sally Bickerton, and Sally Haggerty.
Good evening. John Bickerton, South Clementine Street. On August 23, 2017, many town site neighbors spoke to you in opposition to the construction of third-story structures that were being approved in our neighborhood due to the misinterpretation of Section 3018 of the zoning ordinance. On August 24, 2017, Mayor Weiss issued a memo which clearly directed staff to, quote, no longer permit building height exceptions for any area beyond the minimum needed to protect or screen stairs, elevators, or mechanical equipment. Roof coverings will only be allowed as part of the minimum protection for screening. Minimum, the smallest possible quantity, the least possible. I met with Mr. Borrego on September 27, 2017. He assured me that with the new interpretation of 3018 that these types of large structures that exceeded the height limit would no longer be permitted, that only minimum screening and staircase access covering would be approved, and that no living area, storage area, or covered deck space would be allowed. Since then, another home containing a third-story structure on Grant Street was approved and built. And now, a year later, a home under construction on Stanley Street contains a large third-story structure that is not an example of the minimum needed. Direction was given over a year ago, giving enough time for the owners to conform to the new requirements, even if it was pre-approved. We were told by planning on October 18th that the Stanley Street project was approved due to the fact that the owners needed to protect and screen their stairs, HVAC, water softener, and water heater. You do not need 100 to 200 square feet to do that. What really concerns me is that I asked staff if I came in with similar plans, would they be approved? I was told that it was possible due to the protect or screen language, and that they were still allowing the 10% of footprint exception. Section 3018 is not relevant to single-family neighborhoods. Even so, it clearly states that these structures shall not be used as living space. That means no human occupancy is allowed. I think Mr. Weiss made it clear when he directed staff to only allow the minimum needed, and these structures are far above and beyond that. So the problem now is the definition of minimum and also the 10% height limit exception. So to simplify this issue and avoid any further confusion, please direct staff to stop allowing 3018 exceptions to the height limit. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sally Bickerton, 524 South Clementine Street. I'm so concerned that our city staff continues to find ways to circumvent the building height limits in our neighborhood. The language of 3018 exceptions to height limits is being misused again. First, back in 2017, they were using the word cupola to allow a room. And now it's covered equipment, mechanical devices, is becoming a room to access and house them. This was never the intent of the language and is clearly a misinterpretation. It's not supposed to allow living space. Please, Mayor, Council, and City Manager, give clear direction to staff to eliminate these unacceptable exceptions. We are attempting to keep the integrity of our neighborhood while allowing suitable growth and development. Here are some examples of what minimal covering or protection or screening would be of a mechanical device. And here would be a minimum, some examples of minimum coverage of a stairway opening to the roof. But these are not minimum. These examples show what's being allowed currently. Thank you.
Sally Haggerty, 1038 South Clementine. Two Sallys and two Clementines. 631 Stanley, the photos that you saw were of 631 Stanley Street. I wrote a letter to the council, and thank you so much, Councilman Lowry and Councilman Sanchez, for responding to that letter. And thank you, Mayor Weiss, so much for the directive you're asking our city to do. Having lived here 40 years, having loved this community for that length of time and wanting to keep the character of it, it's very upsetting to watch what's happening at the direction of our planning department. A year ago, in August 17, 2017, we met with Jeff Hunt, and we're told that, oh, well, that's just what it is. We can interpret cupola however it's a building. It's like a rotunda. So appreciating the fact that that has now changed. However, when I wrote the letter to the council, I got a message back from Tiffany Chen saying that these people had been approved prior to the memo going out. The concern there is they had been approved and they were very upset that they had to change what they wanted to do. And what had been approved at that time was a bathroom on the third story. Well, a bathroom on the third story. So in my memo back from Ms. Chen, it says that they were very upset that they couldn't have their bathroom on the third floor. Well, why was that approved prior to August 2017 anyway? The other issue that concerns me about this is there's a heating air conditioning unit and a water softener on the third story. Why on earth would you put a water softener on the third story other than to make sure that you can include the room larger than it was? Please, Mayor Weiss, I appreciate how much you love this city, and I'm hoping that we can come to some agreement that 27 feet is 27 feet. This is a residential neighborhood. This is not a place that needs to have large air conditioning units on a roof. Thank you so much for your time.
No further public on this item.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you. And it seems like this interpretation, you know, in terms of having it more liberally construed and on the 10% has happened gradually over time. And I've noticed that in the townside area, including north of Civic Center Drive, see these humongous buildings, and you just wonder what happened. And it's this added room upstairs it's like storage space, right? But that could later be converted to livable space. So I especially want to make sure that we direct staff to really narrowly construe when interpreting this language, or I don't know if you are thinking about maybe changing the language, but it really ought to be for very, you know, just very small, like the pictures that you showed, very small reasons for doing it, not to create these kind of spaces that create these like third floor feeling. So I don't know if you indicated that you wanted it. You said seaside. I'm wondering if we could do it to town site, wherever there is a single family kind of community. It should be interpreted everywhere the same way. That is more restrictive than liberal. whenever you're applying this, it should be narrowly interpreted and restricted for just the absolute necessary, like say elevator shaft or something like that, but small. Those are my comments. I know we've had these problems before. I would really like to just get rid of this on the 3rd floor, period. If there's not support for that, definitely making sure that it's narrowly construed. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Lowry.
Thank you, Mayor Weiss. In 2010, I was on the council to complete a term here that was about 5 months, and during that time, I met with the city manager and planning staff to discuss this exact issue with them. This is not a new issue in our neighborhood. That is my neighborhood. That's where I live. So I'm not making it up and saying, oh, this is a surprise. It's been going on. One of the pictures that you used in your first, that John used, shows one of the houses that's been there for at least 10 years. So all of a sudden, it's a big issue. I really appreciate that the mayor brought it up. I'm surprised that no other council member has ever brought this up. But when he asked me about it, I said, this is my neighborhood. This is an issue that I'm very concerned about. That house on Stanley is just outrageous. And so people have found that there's a little hole here. You can make a little extra space, then you can move on into it and make it an upstairs party room or whatever you've got. I have one of those houses that's literally off my back porch that they leave all the lights on all night long. They've got chairs all piled up there on their top deck. It's really like a storage area. It's not simply a space to walk up to. And it's also a launching point for their fireworks displays. So I get to see all this and wonder why the city can't do anything about it. And until Mayor Weiss brought this forward, there was no interest in doing this. I was the only person who ever talked about it. So I'm really grateful that the community has brought this forward. I think these are, we've seen houses, there are projects going on right now where people add into the back of their projects. They've obviously brought in sophisticated architects and say, well, we want to retain the nature of the home that's there on the street and add on to it in the back. What a great idea. Nobody wants to use their backyard anymore. They would rather have a garage and maybe a second story add on to their house or a separate unit. That's a great thing to do. Instead, people are still doing this thing where, they do what the people are doing on Stanley Street. It's just stunning. I mean, the entire neighborhood is like their, canyon view. And that's a little disturbing if you actually live in the neighborhood. And that's one of the streets that my family moved into in Oceanside originally, was right there on Stanley Street. So to have this change brought forward by the council to direct it to staff that we do this is a really positive move. And I want to, again, give kudos to the residents for continuing to pound on the city council on this item, because I know the neighborhood groups have done little to nothing about it because they have other concerns. But if individuals are impacted by it and they see it, then that's great. And I want to acknowledge that I'm very grateful to Mayor Weiss for asking me to partner with him on this item. So I hope that we can pass this. Thank you.
Councilmember Feller.
So, pardon me. There was some pictures on display of access to the roof. Kind of interesting, I thought, that would make a difference. You're not denying the access on the roof.
That's correct, and I think some of the information that the residents put together, I think, should be used by staff to, I don't want to write the language, but I like those third-story additions should not be allowed, and staff, after this input, should be able to come back with.
But you are talking about having elevator. If somebody puts an elevator in a two-story house, they have to have room for that piece to go somewhere.
That's correct. I understand.
So I get that you're trying to keep from making a room that was depicted on this Stanley Street, and I think we ought to. I'm going to support it, but I think we ought to be pretty tempered on what kind of thing we can have. For instance, a home that is on the top of the hill behind one of these neighborhoods that may have something different should have some leniency if they are in fact doing that. So, and I just I don't need a comment from you, Councilmember Sanchez. I'm just telling, this is my point of view. So you don't need a comment. You can just sit easy, rest, relax.
I get 10 minutes.
I think you've used it up. Anyway, I think there's leniency in places. Every issue has to be looked at, but I'm typically in favor of, that was really interesting, the stairway in the middle of the house that went right up through the center of the room. So I mean, whatever floats their boat, but I think we need to allow the access to the roof.
Understand. And this wasn't meant to be retroactive. Deputy Mayor Lowry.
Thank you, Mayor. I think what we have here right now is the hugest interpretation of allowing room for the elevator operations. And I've noticed that pretty much on the Strand that people are building two-story houses there that don't have this extension on the top, and they somehow are able to sell those things and live there and enjoy the lives that they have. So I don't see why we should make exceptions for elevator shafts and soft water treatment facilities and air conditioning and every other thing up on the top of the roof when everyone else in the neighborhood is okay with those things on the ground. So I think that we've had the liberal interpretation for years, and it's been long enough, and we've wound up with this third floor that's added on to these homes. And I think that if your intent, Mayor, is to make the rooftops so they kind of look like what's down on the Strand, and it seems that people can survive in those kinds of settings, and not everyone needs to have an elevator in their two-story home.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think that you can't treat anybody differently. You've got to treat everybody the same. You've got to interpret it the same for every single house, no leniency or anything like that, because then somebody else is going to want something exactly the same, and it may be they're just down a little bit farther. You can't do that. It's got to be everybody treated the same. Thank you.
I'll take care of it. Councilmember Kern.
Thank you. I like staff making a liberal interpretation of the rules. We have to set the rules. I think that's what Mayor Weiss is talking about, that we have to narrow those rules down so people do not take undue advantage of those things. The idea, I agree with Councilmember Feller, access to the roof. I don't think a hot water heater and a soft water softener need a window. I don't understand why we have windows and it looks like a room up there if they're just going to cover a hot water heater and a water softener or even the top of a stairwell. So the idea, I would like staff to really start visiting that again, what that looks like, and if they're really going to put mechanical on the roof, which in some designs it goes on the roof, more in commercial buildings than in residential. But the idea to look at those and really maybe tighten up and be a little bit more restrictive, but I really like staff taking a liberal view, working with the homeowner, but it's up to us as the council to come with the rules to apply, because all they are doing is applying the rules that we set. It is not staff that's doing this. It is council hasn't done their job in setting the parameters of what should be done. So anyway, I support is there a motion here, or we're just going to direction?
There was there was a motion and a second. I will just close by saying we are going to get to see this again, because staff is going to have to bring language back to the council. And so once we see that language, we can make a determination if we need to narrow it or we need to add to it. So at this point, I would just, there's a motion and a second. Please vote.
Did you want to say something? Sorry.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Mr. Mullen?
Thank you. Item 23 is the second reading and adoption of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Oceanside authorizing an amendment to the contract between the City Council of the City of Oceanside and the Board of Administration of the California Public Employees Retirement System. Of course, we've already introduced this at your last meeting.
So move adoption.
Public.
Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
So how long do we need to wait?
6 minutes. That clock's wrong, but the clock on my computer says there's no.
What is Jack, the official timekeeper now?
Yeah, it's 5:50.
We'll wait till the buzzer goes off.
Yeah, it's
right?
So at this
5:55
point,
right
I'll
now.
ask, are there any general council member comments?
I have one. So we're just going to council member comments?
Yes.
This Saturday, over here on 602 Pierview 8, the book sale. We have the book sale for the Friends of the Library book sale. You've got to come. You've got to buy as many books as possible because the damn things are heavy, and I got to carry them at the end of the day. So the more books that you buy, the less I have to carry at the end of the day. So please come to the book sale on Saturday. It starts at 10 o'clock over at the Code Enforcement Building, 602 Civic Center Drive. Thank you.
With that, we will adjourn for 5 minutes.